How do you put the world to the side for a second to execute your job when your job is so emotional and so it requires so much from you that if you have an argument before you go on, if you get bad news before you go on or anything like that, what do you do to focus back?
My name is Eric Moore.
My name is Brian Frasier-Moore.
And I am Stanton Moore.
And together,
they put us together to be more and more and more. And these guys, I'm just getting to start to know them, and we realize, oh wow, they put us together as a beautiful Mooreo.
so yeah,
I love that.
we're a Mooreo.
Yeah, and we're here to just talk about business,
Everything.
drumming, life, the business of drumming. And Eric, you had some great points that you were bringing up before we even had the cameras rolling.
Totally.
So let's just continue what we were talking about.
So what I was thinking is being a professional musician, a professional drummer, a lot of people don't know what it's like touring and just working in this profession, all the different things that you have to go through in order to make money in this profession. Like we know that so many different drummers are out there, and I call them weekend warriors. They're playing Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, doing gigs, taking their drums everywhere and packing up and packing down. As a drummer, we're like the first one in, last one to leave. And it's a lot of work playing 3-4 sets a night, learning this business. So my thing was, when you were coming up, what were you thinking when you wanted to be where you are now? Or did that ever come into play?
Well, for me, I think at around the age of 9 years old that I wanted to be a professional drummer. I was like, that looks incredible. I love playing drums. The traveling looks great. And I thought at that time, oh, great. You play at night, you get to sleep as late as you want, right? And then, because at the time I was, going to school and also an altar boy. So sometimes I'd have to wake up at 5-something a.m. to go do 6:30 mass. And I was like, I do not like waking up. So whatever I do in life, I don't want to wake up early. Little did I know, as you're talking about the things that we don't realize, or a lot of people don't realize, there's a lot of early morning flights.
Man, for real.
A lot. And, I have 3:30 a.m. set on my phone as a wake up all the time. Because for a 6:30 a.m. flight out of New Orleans to go catch a gig or catch, the beginning of a tour, I set my alarm for 3:30 a.m. That's just what I do, 3 hours before the flight. So that way I've got an hour to finish getting everything together, and then I leave 2 hours before. What if you had a gig the night before?
Man.
Right? So it's, as you're saying, there's things that a lot of people don't realize, the things that I didn't realize, that there's a lot more to it. And you were talking about having your passport together, having all of your things together, your T's crossed and your I's dotted. If you, get red flagged for something and then you can't have your passport together, then guess what? Somebody else is going to take your spot.
Big, man. Weren't you talking about that a little bit?
Absolutely. I mean, that's a great point. When I was younger, first of all, I'm super transparent about my life because I'm proud of the accomplishments, not just on stage, but like human, just as a young man evolving to an older man. So when I was younger, there were issues with child support, and not necessarily paying child support, but I'm on the road.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know when they send a notice to my house. I'm thinking everything's fine.
Man.
And I got red flagged one time trying to go over to Canada. And that really sparked something in my head. Yes, I'm out here on this road, and I'm living this life, right? And I'm making this money, and it's great, and everybody sees me, but home has to be as on point as it is.
Totally taken care of.
Yeah, first big lesson. So.
Yeah.
Man. That's crazy because what you just said, the first time we ever connected, you gave me real life. So me being young, the first thing I'm thinking is drums, drums, drums. And you was like, man, this is real life. It's more than just drums. Drums is a very minute part of what goes into being a professional musician. Like you just said, getting notices in the mail and you're not home because we've been on tour for the last year. So let's say you didn't do maintenance on your crib and you have trees that grew because they gonna get you, but we don't know. So we got a whole letter in the mail and we didn't pay that bill because we didn't know we had a bill. So that's real life, real life situation. Making sure that things are always taken care of that has nothing to do with drums in general.
That's crazy when I think about your question at first when you were talking about making money, like when we were all, everyone was younger, and I really never imagined being. I mean, today's my birthday, so it's
happy birthday!
Happy birthday! It's a blessing.
So it's really hit me to think like. I have 3 grown kids.
That's so dope.
I have a granddaughter. I'm a pop-pop.
That's amazing.
Congratulations.
So, and I have a wife, and I have a house.
Yeah.
And we have cars, and we have life insurance. And we have all of these things, and to be quite honest, I never really fathomed that I could do it as a drummer. To have the financial income to be able to support my family or my dreams or my home living or to actually have insurance. So it's a blessing. I'm super grateful as I sit here with you guys, and you guys are successful. You know what this is about. So I'm honored to be on this bench with both of you guys, and not only as artists, but like as successful businessmen.
Totally.
Yeah, and I'm honored to be here with you guys. And talking about this, so if we want to be transparent, let's be transparent for a second. So, you guys were asking me, oh, how's it going? What you been up to? So I just finished Jazz Fest in New Orleans, where I played, I think, about 24 gigs in 12 days.
Wow.
Some days I was playing 3 gigs a day. So you play, you play somewhere around 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon at the fairgrounds. Then you got a 10 o'clock gig, and then you got a 2 a.m. gig.
Whoa.
And and it's great. I love it. But that's, once a year. So, okay, cool, no problem. I planned ahead of time. On Wednesday after, I'm going to have a father-daughter day. Take my daughter to lunch, take her for dental appointments, because that way I can get her there. We do it every year. Do it like that in the summer and in the winter, right? So she's in college. So we did all that, and then that took a little longer. I get to the bank, but it's 4:07. And I've got all these checks from all those gigs I played, right? From the second weekend. I already deposited some of the first ones. So, okay, cool, no problem. I get a little frustrated, but not a big deal, no problem. So guess what I was doing on my long layover yesterday? Sitting there, there was too long of a line at the Delta Lounge. So I'm sitting there, at the gate with checks, taking pictures of checks, depositing these checks. The point of this is there's so much more that goes into it. And to handle your business and to take care of all the things that go into it, sometimes you got to do it by any means necessary.
Absolutely.
And if that means you're sitting there at the airport taking pictures of checks, it's like, I got no shame in this. This is what it's got to do.
Totally.
Because I had to prioritize my daughter and spend time with her.
You handle your own band. It is your project.
A few bands, yeah.
Yeah, so you running your own project, like you just said, you were playing at the jazz festivals and you was getting the check. So that means, was it a check from others, or you have to make sure other people are paid?
I have to make sure other people are paid. So I got to make sure those checks get in so I can pay all my guys. And I told them I'd get all to them on Monday. So I had Stanton Moore and Friends, which was one project. I've got the Frequenauts with Donald Harrison Jr., Dragon Smoke with Ivan Neville. So the bass player handles all those, that collecting the check and paying everybody. But a lot of what I do is being a founding member in bands that we started up. That might have started, the project with Ivan Neville started kind of like a super jam thing, and then we had so much fun doing it. We've been doing it for 20 years.
It's amazing.
But we play like 6 to 10 gigs a year, but we played the fairgrounds and we played Tipitina's, right? Sold out at Tipitina's in the Tuesday in between. But it took us 20 years to get there.
Yeah, totally.
Right? And that one, Tips cuts each one of us a check. But I got to handle it. So I've got a great business manager, but I got to get the check into the... So I was 7 minutes late at the bank, so I got to do it on the layover. So, just saying that to y'all's points, there's a lot that goes into it, but you got to handle all of those things.
Yeah, it's life.
Yeah.
It's real life. Just like you say, you have a daughter, so taking out the time to spend with your baby girl and just putting that time into it when you're on the road so much, sometimes it's a lot. It's a lot. Missing family, missing birthdays, missing anniversaries. It sucks. It really actually sucks.
It does.
It's fun to be on tour, but when you miss your family or you miss your loved ones so much, and man, you could literally be on tour and get a phone call that that loved one has passed or something is happening that you can't even get to.
Right.
Like that'd be really, really crazy.
That's
like
the worst.
It's totally the worst.
That's
it. Yeah.
And then you still got to get on stage and rock out in front of 25,000. Like, but it's crazy. I remember my sister, one of my closest best friends. My sister passed away in 2013, and she passed away on a Thursday. And on Friday, I had to fly to Chicago to play Riot Festival with Suicidal Tendencies. That was one of the hardest festivals I ever had to play in my life. Like losing my best friend and going from that to really having to go to work. I didn't want to go to work. I didn't want to get on a plane. I didn't want to leave my family. But it was like, this is what you do. This is what you signed up for. It was really, really difficult time. But being a professional musician, it's like, it's
part of it.
especially in a band.
Let me ask you, because that's a real thing.
Totally.
Like, how do you put the world to the side for a second to execute your job when your job is so emotional and so it requires so much from you that if you have an argument before you go on, if you get bad news before you go on or anything like that, what do you do to focus back?
The hardest thing was back in 2013 when that happened, when my sister passed away, but recent was losing my dad during the pandemic. And when I lost my father during the pandemic, running a company, starting a company and making sure that I have to make sure that these people are paid that work for me. I have to be in work mode, but the only thing that really helped me get through it was playing drums. Like I tried to like cope and be not on the instrument and just be sad. It's like I heard my father tell me like, you got to get back on your instrument in order to smile. And then when I sat back on drums, it made me feel good because I would think about those times. So even in 2013, when my sister passed, when I sat up behind the drum set, I could remember us as kids like jamming together and it made me feel better. So this instrument has been a healer, not just a provider. My instrument is a healer and a provider. It makes me feel good. And that's why I think I love it to this day, even 20 years in the game. Like, it's just crazy. My small amount of 20 years compared to you guys is nothing. So me growing up watching you guys be the amazing musicians you guys are is so epic to me.
Well, thank you, man. Watching you
That's what I was about
is
to
really
say.
inspiring.
Yeah.
So, it goes in circles, So seeing, well, of course, I've been seeing you for years and like, man, and I'm so glad that we got to all be together. Because, I think we all inspire each other,
Absolutely.
right? And at different times. And what you were just saying, I think to answer your question, I try to focus on the positives, right?
Yeah.
So I lost my dad in the pandemic too, in 2020, April 8th of 2020. So that was a really challenging time.
Very, very.
So I would focus on all the times that he would, take me to gigs I wanted to see before I was old enough to go, and all the times that we got to hang and all the support he gave me. So I would focus on that. And then, this was the first Jazz Fest that we went through without Russell Batiste Jr. And so they asked me to do the induction into the Walk of Fame outside of Tipitina's. So I was surrounded by his dad and his sister and all of his brothers. He's got 2 brothers that play drums. So they asked me to start the induction and say words about Russell. So there were many times I was playing gigs where it's like, man, this is the first Jazz Fest without Russell. And I'd play something that I totally got from him. And I'd get emotional playing the drums.
Yes.
But focusing on, man, what a gift he was to all of us, and not focus on the sadness that I feel, but try to focus on the positive, That's how I get through those difficult things, is try to focus on the good memories of that situation that you might be upset about.
Yeah.
No, totally.
I just realized we all lost our fathers in the pandemic.
Really, you too.
It's the hardest thing. It's one of the hardest things, and that's what a lot of people don't understand. And it's like, we got to get on stage and make everybody else dance and make everybody else feel good, no matter what we're going through.
Yeah.
No matter what is in our head. Like, we got to remember these parts, these changes, this music. I don't think they understand how much of a responsibility it is during a show. a drummer has.
Yeah.
No matter how big or how small.
Doesn't matter.
Playing to these clicks, knowing how to set the atmosphere, don't rush. It's so big. It's so big, especially in front of 25,000, 5,000, so many people. It's crazy.
Yeah, and to your point, if you stop for any reason, I really need to take a big sip of water right now. The show is waiting for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Sometimes I don't take a sip of water for the whole show. And that's, to your point, it's a huge responsibility. And it can weigh on you sometimes. But if you stop for any moment, we all know you got to go to the bathroom before you, like if you're in the middle of a set, excuse me, 25,000 people,
happening.
I got to go to the bathroom.
It ain't
That
happening.
don't work that
It ain't
way.
happening, never.
No.
Being out, now you get to the point in gigs, certain different situations. I recently, within the last 5 years, started having a drum tech, right? But being on bigger tours, getting my tour set up, see, I think that this is information like taking your course and knowing different things. When you talk to your people, do they ever remember to ask you, I'm about to go on tour, how many snare drums should I take? Because a lot of people don't know, like, if you break a snare drum during the gig, but you didn't have that extra replacement in the back, that's time wasted.
Oh, that's time
Do you
wasted.
remember ever being in that situation?
Absolutely.
Like when you was out
Early.
with Aaliyah or Genuine? Like,
Absolutely.
because those tours, like, that was the beginning of the situation. Like, oh snap, I didn't have an extra snare drum.
I consider that my lessons learned. Like stuff like that'll never happen. It never happened again. But I guess we all need those type of things. But yeah, some clients that I have, they only play hip hop gigs, right? So this is a good example. They say, I'm playing a hip hop gig. I just need 5 by 10 for the whole gig. Yeah, 5 by 10. But what happens when they want to make segues that's going from song to song? What happens when they want to take that pop or rock standard and insert it into the second verse to switch it up? Like I tell them, your setup, especially your snare selection, should not be conducive to just the music, but to the whole message that the artist is trying to give.
Exactly.
So then if Justin Timberlake or Madonna or whoever comes in and says, hey, I was just listening to Phil Collins in the car, and you got a 5 by 10.
Yeah, it ain't for real.
So
You in trouble.
You in trouble. So I think that's a great question, but I do talk to them a lot about that.
Totally. For you, getting to play your style, your New Orleans, being yourself, how is that? Like being you every night on stage. Like you get to be you. Like we like drum clinics, we get to be us in different areas or whatever, but working with an artist. But how is it for you to be able to tour and be your own artist and do what you do?
That's a great question. And to be honest, I mean, I love it. I realize I'm very grateful and very, very, fortunate, but we also put in a hell of a lot of work. So, in 1996 is when we bought my parents' 1978 van with Galactic, and we started touring. And the first year we toured, we did about almost 200 dates. And we went from...
First year?
First year.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And we were calling clubs ourselves and mailing them a CD. And the first tour was a West Coast tour, and we didn't want to do regional. We didn't want to just be a regional band. So our first gig that we booked was a gig at a club called the Chameleon Club in Vancouver, because we heard that they liked acid jazz, right?
Okay.
So we were trying to play vintage funk and vintage New Orleans stuff. So we're like, oh, maybe they'll dig what we're doing. So we booked that gig, and that's New Orleans to Vancouver. Then we booked 2 gigs in Colorado. So we drove 24 hours to Colorado, taking turns, no stopping, played Breckenridge and Vail, then we drove another 24 hours. That was our first tour. Okay. So then we worked our way down. That was 5 weeks. Somewhere in the middle of that 5-week tour, a booking agent found out about us. So to cut a long story short, we went from playing in between 10 and 50 people that first tour.
Yeah.
By 2000, we were selling out the Warfield, 2,500 people.
Yes.
But that's 4 years.
Yeah.
It took us to get from 10 to 50 people to 2,500 in San Francisco in a bus.
Yeah.
And I got to be doing my thing. And it's like, this is great. And then I started other bands, you know. So I had started, Garage Etoile with Charlie Hunter and my own stuff under my own name, Dragon Smoke with Ivan. And before I know it, I'm, getting occasional calls to play with Leo Nocentelli and to play with George Porter Jr. And before I know it, I've got a diverse portfolio of stuff I'm doing. And except for when, if you're playing with Leo Nocentelli, he wants you to play it exactly like Zig on the record.
Totally.
But, and there's several situations I have like that, but for a lot of the time, to your point, I get to be myself, and that's incredible. And, I studied with Johnny Vodakovich when I was about 17 years old. I was studying with Johnny Vodakovich and running around with Russell Batiste. And I tried to be some kind of blend between Johnny V, Russell, Zig, and a little bit of John Bonham, right? And then Johnny encouraged me. He's like, man, little brother, put your thumbprint on it. And I would come to him with these ideas, and then, coming up with things like playing a Pondero on the left. Nobody stopped me.
Yeah, totally. I love that. I love that in your setup.
Thank you.
That is killer.
Thank you. And, so I would show this to Johnny, and he's like, man, go run with that. Do your thing.
Yeah.
So then I'd go in and I'd come up with a groove, and I'd either write a tune to it or show it to the band and be like, oh, cool, let's write a tune to it. And then next thing I know, it's like, this is a thing that I've gotten to present, So I feel very grateful and very fortunate.
Totally.
But it's been a long road.
Long road. So for me, I went kind of backwards. I started playing different genres of music, playing R&B. So I toured, and I was able to go and be on airplanes and be on a tour bus and stuff like that at first. Then I got into the rock world, and playing with Suicidal Tendencies was awesome in being on a tour bus, taking my own drums out, and being somewhat, like I guess it would be like a C level of touring. Okay. Like in the rock band, it was about a C level of touring. When I started my own band with Lilac, that's when life totally changed, and it went way backwards to being in a small van, Sprinter van, and sleeping in Walmart parking lots. That was an eye opener to be able to grind and to change. But I'm playing my own music. I'm playing something that I wrote. But it was like, we're gonna do this small tour run where we're opening up for bigger metal bands, and we're trying to build something. And then our next tour, we went on tour with Megadeth. So it was like, it went from this to that, which was cool. Just like you said, within 4 years, the change. My question is, have you had to play the smaller gigs yet to where you had to like travel in a Sprinter van or anything of that nature?
Absolutely.
No, because this is things that, like, me being, like, I'm a total big fan of you and your playing. So my first introduction into you was you playing with Genuine. You playing like, so I really don't know what it's like for Brian when, even that was over 20 years ago. So like that was in the 90s, like 2000s early. So I really don't know before that, like what it was, the push in order to be where you was at the next level.
Absolutely. I think, and I totally understand what you're saying. I mean, we didn't have social media back then, so it's not documented to see me on the 48 bus on Germantown to Shelton, coming from school with my whole kit, or on Amtrak with Dave Talbot doing plays, carrying all of my kit. You know how when the Amtrak train pull up?
Yep.
You gotta
sit like 5 minutes to get everything on.
Just imagine.
You gotta jump.
A full kit, hardware bag.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Hustling.
So yeah, absolutely. But that's a great question. But yeah, it was tough. It was hard. It was grassroots. It was army bag full of hardware. It was nobody's gonna drive me to the gig. Playing at the Wilhelmina's or the 5 Spot in Philly. Going to Larry Gold's studio, having to take my own gear, playing with Michael Scott and Outreach, playing with Tony Moore and Chosen.
Yeah, see, and that's what a lot of you out there don't get, this opportunity to know what it's like, the grind before we're who you know us to be. Like, that's why I love Sweetwater for giving us this opportunity to talk about music and drums and man, I just want to say thank you, Sweetwater, for bringing us together. Thank you guys so much for everything. I believe that the time is almost spent, but it's been well spent. So thank you guys.
Yeah, man.
Thank you guys.
Beautiful.
Thank
Beautiful
you.
to hang with y'all.
Thank
Yes,
you.
indeed.